A new weather pattern means that several new winter storms are likely as we exit January and push towards February. This comes as wild temperature swings could lead to impacts from snow to even severe storms. This video has the full breakdown on what to expect with those upcoming trends. Thank you for taking time out of your day to tune into this update. I want to start this video by giving you a look at forecasted temperature trends with this blended guidance as we push through the next 10 to 12 days, because what happens with your temperature anomalies does a good job of showing what's going to be going on in terms of areas of active weather ahead as well, and I'll be breaking that down in detail as we go throughout this video. Let's start off here with the near-term temperature anomalies as we push out of this weekend and into the first couple days of the week ahead. Jumping ahead here to around our Tuesday, January 28th of 2025 into the afternoon hours. The rare color filling up a lot of the screen, especially into the nation's midsection. After a very cold and below average January for many zones so far, we're going to see a warm up with a ridge, especially bringing the most anomalous warmth with the south to north flow all the way up to the north central plains, where temperatures could be as much as 20 to 30 degrees above normal as we go to the early to the mid part of the week with this big flow developing. While that's going on though, as we go through most of the week ahead, these blues up here into the northeast indicating something going on that's keeping the temperatures below average, and in this case it is going to be clipper systems. Low pressures with cold fronts moving from northwest to southeast, dragging some snow through parts of the Great Lakes here into the northeast and mid-Atlantic on and off at times, and that's going to be what keeps it cooler up in this general region as we see those light to moderate snowfall accumulations build as the week goes on. What's really going to help in developing our next winter storm pattern, though, is the contrast that you start to see as we go out of Tuesday and Wednesday and then push ahead towards around Thursday, January 30th of the week ahead, with warmer than average temperatures continuing to build on up here into the plains. You've got the stage set for a storm system if any cooler than average air can move into that, and that's exactly what we see here. Low pressure and cool air likely to begin at diving on down here, especially as we go from the early to the mid part of the week out of parts of California and Nevada and then over into the Four Corners region. When you've got a contrast between cold and warm, that's normally a recipe for a storm system, and I think that's especially going to get going sometime out of this January 30th timeframe into January 31st and February 1st as we see some of that cool air trying to nudge out into this warmer than average air in the center of the country. That could bring snow into this zone right here, even if the temperatures don't go below average with this particular system and the temperatures only just get a little bit cooler while remaining above average. A little bit above average is still cold in the heart of winter here into the plains. You've got to keep that in mind. So that could still mean snow somewhere into this general zone, and I'll break that down in more detail here in just a minute. And then in terms of the overall temperature pattern as we go deeper into February here through the first few days, and then as we push towards the end of February 3rd into February 4th, it looks like we're going to begin to see a transition where all of this warmth that's been building through the central and eastern U.S. begins to pivot a little bit further on over here to the east. That's probably going to be with multiple storm systems continuing to move through this general zone. I think it's going to be an active time into the central United States that goes well beyond that first storm that ends the upcoming week. And I want to go ahead and give you a look at how that pattern could definitely shake out with an overview here of your GFS ensembles right now. All right, here we are looking at this blended guidance that forms your GFS ensembles here. We're going to start with the near-term pattern, and then we'll break down some of those precipitation zones as we go deeper into the week ahead and even into the first few days of February as well as we go further along. But let's just start here as we go into the afternoon of our Sunday, January 26th of 2025. A few things we're going to be watching that are going to be developing. Of course, clipper number one of an active week that's going to have at least 3 clippers on up here into parts of the Great Lakes and Northeast. This one pretty weak, but some light snow back into parts of the interior states like New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine out of this particular system. We're also at that same time going to be watching a little bit of rain down here towards Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, and Mississippi, and this is going to trend east as we go through the rest of Sunday and then into Sunday night and into Monday, possibly even bringing impacts to your Monday morning commute, pushing over here into parts of the southeast U.S. with that possible rainfall. Not a big system and not really indicative of the overall pattern change going on, pretty unrelated to everything else, but it was definitely worth mentioning for you there. And then also notice we've got rain and a little bit of snow in the mountains there of California. Very beneficial in terms of wildfires there, and eventually this energy is going to be what's going to make its way over into the Four Corners and then transition out into the plains very slowly by the time we get to the middle to the back half of the week. Here we go, let's jump through Monday and go into our Tuesday, January 28th, where you can see your next clipper system moving through parts of the interior Northeast. This could bring a heavier batch of snow to interior parts of New York and Vermont in particular, but anywhere from Ohio all the way up to Maine, interior parts of these states especially, and especially as you go closer to the lakes, looking at snow out of this one. Also, as we go through the day Tuesday, another clipper, look at that, moving through parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, and through a lot of Michigan, and then that'll eventually trend over into the interior Northeast into Wednesday as well. And then we turn our attention back to the southwest where a big signal develops as we go out of Wednesday into Wednesday night and then into the morning hours of our Thursday, January 30th of 2025. Overall, looks like low pressure would be sitting right around the Texas panhandle, drawing up moisture and those deep greens indicating a good chance for showers and possibly even heavy thunderstorms that could be on that stronger side into parts of Texas and Oklahoma around this overnight time frame. We'd also be watching the snow departing out of parts of New Mexico and Colorado, and then trying to make a run out into parts of the high plains and central plains through the day Thursday and into Friday with this kind of setup. Overall, even given the fact that we're expected to have warmer than average air in place over parts of the central plains, the trend on blended guidance like this is that we're going to see, with the system expanding east into Friday, some snow in this general zone pushing through the central plains and trying to move into the Midwest states like Iowa and northern Missouri. Again, it's very questionable exactly who might see snow and how much it may be as it tries to fight through that warmer than average air and not just come down as rain. But for now, this general zone looks like it still has some level of confidence for some snow out of this larger scale system, while as we go out of Thursday through Thursday night and into Friday, we continue to watch these heavier thunderstorms indicated by those high confidence deep greens for that heavier rain down towards the lower Mississippi Valley and the Mid-South. This is definitely the highest confidence part of the storm in comparison to that snow that's a little more iffy as it'll be fighting that warm air there towards these central plains. And then from there, I can already tell you from here, based on the decreasing strength of these colors, the greens kind of fading out and just turning lighter, the pinks and the blues just kind of becoming all over the place by the time we go into our Saturday, February 1st. We're seeing a lot of decreased confidence in where the system goes by the time we see it move out of the plains and east of the Mississippi River. But somewhere up here, February 1st and 2nd might try to bring some winter weather and then maybe transition over to rain or ice. Further down to the south, if we see any thunderstorms that could even be on that stronger side continuing to move towards the east coast, it would be down towards the southeast and the mid-Atlantic. Time will tell out of that system, but then you can also see that we continue to look at those active signals indicated by those changing temperatures I was showing you a minute ago from the central to the eastern U.S., looking like a wild ride, even back into the west with snow there as we go through the first few days of February and beyond. I'll keep you updated on all of that, of course, as we go deeper in time. With that precipitation overview now in mind, that leads me into the two main takeaways about that, especially that first winter storm that's expected to lead off a setup of many as we go to finish January and go into the first couple of days of February. This is your snow zones graphic I've made for that time frame right here on the channel, and I think this especially encompasses around the January 30th, 31st, and February 1st time frame, where there's pretty high confidence in this zone of blue, where there's going to be a possibility of snow, especially as we go out of Wednesday into Thursday of the week ahead. From there, heading out of Thursday into Friday and Saturday, that's where questions arise, but we could see some snow with that low as it makes its way on up here through the central and north central plains as well as the upper Midwest, maybe even over to the Great Lakes and Northeast with time. We're going to have to watch the snow side of this storm, and it's definitely going to be a tricky setup given the fact that warmer than average air will be in place. That's takeaway number one. Takeaway number two can be better seen as I play out these 3-day precipitation increments from this blended guidance right here. And of course, the main other focus that this storm has, in my eyes, of course, and this could be the biggest threat, of course, in addition to that snow that we could see towards the central and northern plains, it's this rain that's going to be likely down on the southern side of the storm, especially with confidence, at least for now, down towards the mid-south southern plains and lower Mississippi Valley. But we could see confidence expand for this flooding and severe weather potential even into areas further east as we get closer to this storm. Lots of time for impacts to shift around and change. I'll be on top of it, but of course the other big takeaway is this right here. Flooding and severe weather could also be a big concern, especially the further south you go with this particular system. All that being said, I'll continue to keep you updated on the winter storm pattern because I'm sure it's not going to end at that one that I just gave you the takeaways for. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the near-term aspects of the pattern ahead, though. Break down the forecasted high temperatures day by day based on those anomalies that I already showed earlier. We'll even give you a quick look here in just a minute at the forecasted snowfall out of those clippers in the northeast and that snow in the southwest as we push into this week. But let's just start with those high temperatures Sunday, January 26th of 2025. Notice this line right here. Most spots north of this line is struggling to crack 40, many spots below freezing for the peak temperature of the day as we go into the last day of this weekend. Meanwhile, south of the line, we've got lots of 40s, 50s, and even as you get closer to the Gulf Coast, 60s and 70s, where, of course, that snow is pretty much long gone in many zones by this point in time. A historic snow event down there in the Gulf Coast a few days ago, but it goes away quickly whenever you get it that far south, I can tell you that for sure. And what's going away quickly as well, by the time you get into our Monday afternoon, look at this. The 30s turn to the 40s and 50s as far north as Nebraska, Iowa, and Kansas. with that warm-up that's going to be ahead of the later week system. The question is going to be, with this ridge in place, will that system be able to produce enough dynamic cooling for that snow threat to really come to fruition as we go towards around Thursday and Friday? Will there be enough cold morning air in place and it moves in at the right time for there to be snow? That's what's really in question here, and it's something that we're going to have to continue to track. But either way, it's going to be warm earlier in the week in all these zones that could get snow later on. Look at this, Tuesday warming up to the mid-50s in Nebraska. Big chunk of the Gulf Coast, southeast, even Florida in the 60s, and then down there towards southern Florida with 70s, pushing closer to 80 when you get that feels like temperature with humidity down there towards the Florida Keys. Crazy stuff there. All while this is going on, though, with those Clipper systems moving to the northeast this week, we keep it closer to freezing with that flow from northwest to southeast from Wisconsin and Michigan down there to that zone. And we're also cool here into the Rockies and Four Corners, where we're going to be watching some of that snow moving through into the week ahead. And let's go ahead and talk about briefly some of those snow totals you can expect in those zones. All right, here's that quick look at that forecasted snowfall as we go through the mid to the back half portion of this week out of those Clippers, and then what's going to be going on in the southwest. This is pushing through our Wednesday afternoon and evening. Notice only two zones we're watching. Southwest snow right here with that low that's eventually going to move towards the central plains. At least a few inches of snow in many of those higher elevations of California, northern Arizona, with some light accumulations through a lot of the rest of these states, as well as Nevada, Utah, into Colorado and New Mexico by this point in time. It doesn't go into the plains from there. That'll be the question, and I'll keep you updated on that as we get closer. And then also notice north of this line, right on up here into the Great Lakes and Northeast, watching those Clipper systems, and in some cases where you see those blues, Upper Peninsula Michigan, north central parts of the Glove of Michigan, western PA, northern New York, into Vermont, New Hampshire, and parts of Maine in these areas. At least a few inches of snow, locally higher amounts. Check weather.gov for your most local specific forecasts. That being said, that leads me into the end of this video here, where I just talked about the first headline of this video at the end of it. I know that's weird that we talked about the near-term minor impact systems at the end, but here we are. The main reason I did that is because the other headlines are probably going to be bigger scale and more important as we're going to be warming up ahead of our next big winter storm. That's what I talked about at the beginning of the video. That warm-up means it's going to be questionable for snow from the central to the north central U.S. out of that first system finishing January going into early February. Either way, we'll probably see more snow chances and more chances for the bottom headline, severe weather and flooding across the south, even beyond that first system, and as we go deeper into February, for example. By the way, I've made a new type of graphics template here. This is just my southeast example. I'll be making more if I get positive feedback in the comments below. So let me know in the comments down below, should I expand this to include more regions? Behind those city names that you see on screen, I'd be able to put severe weather scale forecasts. I'd be able to put custom snow forecasts, you name it, and I could do it for all kinds of regions and zoomed in purposes there. Let me know below, and of course, if you're not already subscribed as well, I'd love it if you hit that subscribe button down below so that I can deliver more custom graphics, consistent, accurate, and educational forecasts to you in the future. I'll see you next time right here at
One Nation Weather.